was 25 when I returned to the station where we once stood side by side. Her name was Yulia. And I wasn't looking for her. I was looking for myself, where we were happy until we learned to be silent. The station has changed. Its once warm colors have faded. The signs have been updated. The ticket office has long been closed. But one bench has remained. The same one where you sat with a thermos of raspberry tea. And I didn't say anything because I was afraid that words would ruin that moment. You never asked for much. Just to be. Just honestly. And I was always preparing to run away. Not because I didn't love. But because I didn't know how to be there without fear of losing myself. The city, the station, the autumn wind. Everything was silent. And I got the same letter. Old, yellowed, written at night, when my heart trembled like a window during a thunderstorm. Yulia, I thought that silence would protect us. I was wrong. Silence made us people who forgot what their voice sounds like. I'm often asked why I go back to memories. Because only there is still a chance to say what I did not say. And you perhaps will hear. The station was empty. The woman with the suitcase was looking into the distance. The boy was chewing an apple and examining the clock. I was looking into my soul, at the point where you stood the last time before saying, Valak, I am tired of waiting for the words that you are hiding. I did not answer anything then. I just nodded as if it was honest. And then I could not forget your look for a long time. Not angry but disappointed. We know how to lose quietly. Without drama. We simply disappear one with the other's life. Like fog in the morning. Silence became my form of love. But you needed a voice. And here I am, at that bench, with that letter, with a question in my heart. Can I return if no one else is waiting? Before you there was only silence. And searching. I didn't know what it was to be needed, not because you were special, but because you are. Yulia didn't appear loudly. She didn't come with the words, I'll change you. She was simply there. And there was more in that there than in all the promises I'd ever heard. I was about 23 then, but my soul was the age of a tired room, such that even sleep doesn't give me peace. I wasn't looking for a relationship. I was looking for a look that wouldn't be afraid of my cracks. Yulia said, You don't have to be strong all the time. I'll stay even if you fall. I listened and didn't believe her. Because before that, I was left exactly when I showed weakness. That's why I learned not to show anything. Our first meeting was not in a cafe, not a train station, not flowers. It was an evening on the steps of the dormitory. You had old patched jeans, and my hands were shaking because I couldn't understand why I felt comfortable around you. You didn't ask about my fears, but your silence gave me the right to mine. It was like a blessing. You can be yourself, even if it hurts. I told you the first truth in a long time. I don't know who I am. You smiled carefully, gently. And you don't have to know right now. That evening you sat on the railing, and your shadow fell on my shoulder, like a promise not to leave. I wanted to hold on to that moment forever. But I only know how to lose it quietly. The next time I brought you an apple, you laughed. This is the best gift because you thought of me, even when you were just walking down the street. I felt for the first time that small things can be deep. Then I started writing letters. Not to you, to myself. Because when you appeared, I realized that much was not said. And even more was not experienced. I wrote about myself, the one everyone had forgotten. And about you, the one who began to remember me. You were like a light that does not press, but warms. But I was like a window, cracked, dirty, afraid to open because there is a draft. I promised myself that I would not spoil this story. But I did not know then that people like me do not spoil. They simply remain silent. Losses don't happen instantly. It's not like broken glass. It's more like a chipped cup that still holds its shape, but will no longer be whole. And you keep drinking from it because you're used to it. Because you don't want to throw away what once warmed you. Something broke between Yulia and me. Not loudly. Not with a scream. But with pauses that became longer than the conversations themselves. I remember the day she came in silent. The same eyes, warm, caring, but with the hint of someone saying goodbye even before the goodbye. She said, "I don't know if we're still together. We seem to be together, but not together." I was silent, because I had nothing to answer. Back then, I still believed that silence was a path, not betrayal. But silence is a pause that someone has to break. And if no one speaks, she becomes a wall. We went for a walk. Autumn again. The leaves were falling, as if something was tired of holding on. I tried to take her hand as before. She didn't pull away, but she didn't squeeze mine either. And then I realized, we're not the same anymore. Not because someone did something terrible, but because something important wasn't done. There was no phrase, "It hurts me." There was no confession, "I don't know how to love you, but I want to learn." There was no voice that would say, "I'm here, not perfect but sincere." That evening she said, "I won't leave, but I don't know if I'll stay." It was the greatest truth I've ever heard. And it sounded quieter than the rain. We were sitting on the windowsill of her room. The light from the lamp breathed yellow warmth, but the room was cold. Not physically, emotionally. Because there was a pause between us that I had created with my fear. I wanted to say, "Don't go. I'll learn to speak. I've just been in the shadows for too long. Give me some light." But instead I said, "Maybe it'll be easier for you without me." And it was at that moment that I lost that cup with a chip. Because not all things have to be perfect, but they have to be chosen again. And I made it clear to her that I don't choose myself. Yulia didn't scream. She didn't cry. She simply hugged me and said, "Thank you for being there. Even if we didn't make it." That's when I first realized that loss isn't always about the end. Sometimes it's about choosing to no longer hold on to what doesn't speak. After it, space appeared. Not freedom, precisely space. Like a room from which someone had just left, but left their scent, their shadow on the wall, a cup with a lip print. I started writing letters. Every day. Sometimes at night. Sometimes just in the middle of the street, in a notebook that used to be yours. "Yulia, I'm fine, but you're not in this find. I've learned to sleep without waiting for a message. But I still haven't learned to breathe when I think of you." These letters never left. They lie in a box. A blue one with a sticker, Georgia, 2019. The same one where you put the memories that didn't fit in a photo. Became quieter. Not silent. Precisely quieter. I learned to listen to myself. I realized that pain is not an enemy, but a guest. He doesn't come to destroy, but to show what else hurts. I walked our routes. The park by the river. The bench where you read me poems. The coffee shop with bitter cocoa that you always finished for me. You were music. I was silence. Together, we were a pause in which I wanted to stay. And here I am alone. But not alone. 'Cause your voice still sounds in me. The one that said, "Don't be afraid of the light. It is a part of you." It wasn't easy. Stop waiting. Not checking photos from Rivna. Not asking friends how you are. Being in my life without you. One day I took a pebble from our lake. I put it on the shelf. And wrote on it, "Silence, which is not betrayal." Because I no longer hold you as a loss. Now you are part of history. Not a burden, not an insult. Just an event that taught me about myself. Your photos are still on my phone. But I no longer look for evidence in them that you were happy with me. I just look and think, I thank you for coming. Even if you didn't stay. The letters remain in the mailbox. And maybe someday I will burn them. Or maybe not. Because they don't only have pain. They have me. The one who learns to be alive even after silence. This is not a letter. This is not a confession. This is a step. Small, timid, but mine. Yulia has long been absent from my messages. Not in my pulse during the call. Not in those phrases, "What if?" But she is in me. Like the trace of the sun on my skin after summer. Like the sound of her voice when I think about honesty. For a long time it seemed to me that I had to close everything. Burn it. Forget it. And then I realized, memory is not shackles. It is roots. Because not everything that ended was wrong. And not everything that hurts needs healing. Some just need space. I stopped asking. Does she remember? I started asking. Do I remember with gratitude? And the answer came not in words, in the silence that no longer hurt. Now I write stories about myself, about what I learned when I lost. About how silence is not always bad, but if you leave it for too long, it becomes an abyss. About how the pause between I and you is the very space where we is born, and that sometimes we don't live to see it. I remember how you held the book upside down, because you were captivated by my tirade about authenticity. And how you laughed at me because I confused Rilke with Celan. And also how you said, you are afraid of being loved because you don't know what it is. I already know a little, 'cause I learned to love without fear of loss. I learned to speak up when something matters. I learned to be, not for someone but with someone. You and I will not return. 'Cause we are different. And this is not a tragedy. This is growth. I don't know where you are. Maybe in a new city. Maybe with someone who talks more than I ever could. Don't ask. Because the most important thing is not to know, but to accept. This story is not about you. And it's not about me. It's about how love takes the form of more than just presence. It's also about letting go. Moments Unfold is not just footage from the past. It's about how we see ourselves through the prism of the one who taught us to be authentic. Yulia, if you ever see this, know that I'm not silent anymore. And it's not against you. It's because of you.